Today would be an important day to take some notes, and more important to pay attention. This is really, really foundational to everything that we do. We're beyond the fact that we are stressed. We are beyond knowing what happens to us when we do let stress remain as a functioning part of us. Now, from this point on, it's all about how do we keep ourselves from being stressed in the first place, and when we do get stressed, how do we turn it off? And so what we're looking at here today, if we look at our stress model, we're going to be dealing with this place right here. Remember what did we call this? Our perceived threat, right? We decided it didn't matter if it's real or not, and what percent of the time, again in review, is it not real? 99 point some percent. So less than 1% of the time is this threat real, but it doesn't matter to us because we're still saying uh-oh all the time. And anytime we say uh-oh, there it goes. Okay? So it seems to me that the most valuable thing we can do is prevent it in the first place. Logically, then, what do we need to do? What does that, just thinking logically, what does that involve, or what do we have to deal with in order to prevent it in the first place? Did that make sense when I asked that? Where does all stress begin? With our thoughts. Not what's happening out there, which we're going to play with today. It always begins with our thoughts, and so if stress always begins with our thoughts, always, then the best thing we could possibly do is figure out how to adjust our thoughts so that stress does not happen. Does that make sense? I mean, that just seems like the most logical thing. If I can just think differently, if stress is based on how I think, if I can just think differently, problem solved. Right? Is it that easy? What's the problem with that?
It's hard to change the way you think.
Very hard. Yeah, and I acknowledge that. I'll be the first to admit, changing how we constantly are thinking is really difficult because most of it we do without even thinking, what am I thinking about? So we do have to start taking charge of what's going on up here. And today and for the next few weeks, we're going to explore how to do that. Now, first of all, well, let's start with this simple kind of, I don't know if demonstration is the right word, but in any situation that we find ourselves stressed for whatever reason, in any situation, we can immediately ask ourselves 3 questions that if we answer them correctly, we'll find that this stress, this perceived threat, just these are the 3 questions. They're kind of not magical, but they seem to work. And the first question that I can ask myself whenever I'm in a situation of any kind, getting ready to take a test, calling up somebody on a date, going to an interview, whatever, you name it, shooting a foul shot with 1 second left in the game. You can ask yourself these 3 questions and no threat. And these are the questions. The first one is, am I in danger here? In other words, in this situation. Am I in danger in this situation?
You mean physical
Right. Yes. Am I in physical? Thank you for that clarification. Am I in physical danger? Now, what did we decide about that? Very rare. Less than 1% of the time. So, if we say to ourselves, the correct answer to that is no. If I say to myself, oh, well, I'll be all right. I'm not in danger. Then, what we have to do is we have to get this connection between our frontal lobes, this part of our brain that processes things. And remember the video, the hypothalamus, that part of us that is initiating the stress response. We need to get the connection between our processing part of our brain, our logical thinking part of our brain. The hypothalamus is always listening to that. Our more ancient part of us is always listening to what we're saying. And so if we say the right things, it'll say, oh, no problem. I don't have to turn on the juices. I don't have to get the adrenaline and the cortisol flowing. I don't have to do any of that. I can just stay calm. But that has to come from our thoughts. So if we think correctly, first thing we can ask is, am I in danger here? The second thing that we can ask ourselves is kind of the same, but sort of different. Can I handle this? In other words, can I handle this without dying? Can I handle this without experiencing physical pain? Logical question. Yes? What's the correct answer to that? Yes? Now, here's an even better question. How do you know that you can handle this? Where can you look that can accurately tell for you, oh, well, I can handle this? Where can you look? Think about it. Yes. Why do you say that? She said our past experiences.
Because most of it already or something similar to it and you got through it.
Yeah, no death. How many tests have you taken in your life? I mean, a ton, right? And guess what? You didn't die a single time. So why would this be any different? How many times have you called somebody up to ask them out on a date and survived, lived through it, lived to tell the tale? Why would this be any different? How many times have you talked to somebody new that you didn't know before? And now here's a new person who you'd like to talk to. But you're not sure, it's kind of scary. Well, you look at your past experience and go, oh, I did it all those times. I guess I can do it again. See, what you're trying to do here is you're trying to convince your system that you're not in danger. That's all you're trying to do by answering these questions accurately. Does that make sense? So the correct answer is, yeah. Because my past experience proves to me that this should be no different. The third question that we can ask, and the one that springboards us into everything we'll do for the next few weeks, is, can I think about this differently? If all stress begins with a thought, and it's the thought that's initiating the stress response, if we can think about whatever it is in a different way, can we then bypass the need for the stress response to turn on. Is that possible? Must be. Let's look at a few scenarios. Now, a lot of things happen out there. You know, you drive to school. What percentage of the things that you see out there can you do anything about? You're driving to school. Okay? And all of these things are happening around you. How much of that can you control?
Pretty much none of just what's right. Like you can control your car the way you're thinking.
Okay.
You can't control anybody else.
Sun's coming up. Can you do anything about that? It's windy. Dang, it's windy. Can you do anything? You can't do anything about most everything, can you? Okay. Events happen in our experience. Events are always taking place. And we find ourselves in the middle of these events, over which we have very little, if any, control. Okay? So let's use one example, and we're going to play with a whole bunch so that we get this idea. Let's say that you're driving your car. We use a lot of car ones because there's so much emotion around driving. You're driving your car. Say you're driving to school even. And suddenly you notice, as you look in your rearview mirror, that there's a cop right behind you. And his lights are going. And there's a little, no, what's the sound that they, I don't know. We're in Britain just a second ago. You see the lights going and you hear the siren. What is your immediate reaction likely to be? Has anyone never been in that situation? We've all been there, right? Oh, you've never had that? Okay, so you must not drive very no. You've all been in that situation, except for you. So you look in your rearview mirror and you immediately see this lights going, and he's right behind you. You know, here's you, here's his car or her car. What's your likely immediate reaction going to be? Oh, crap. What did I? Okay. Without him looking, right? Your thought is, oh, crap. Why do you have that thought?
Poor college kids can't afford a ticket.
Okay. For some reason, he has decided that you are in trouble. And because of you doing something wrong, you're going to have to pay some of your money to somebody who doesn't need it more than you do. Right? That's the thought that goes off in your head. The instant you think, oh crap, what do you notice happening physiologically? What? You start sweating. Oh, geez. Okay? You notice all of these things that are stress response automatically happen because you said, oh, jeez. You can't help that part of it. But here's my question for you. Is that an automatic thing? Is there no way that you could possibly think any other way? Let me ask you this. Let me ask this a slightly different way. Is it possible, it may not be likely, but is it humanly possible for you, when you see that person in the rearview mirror, to have a different thought besides, oh, crap?
If you were rich.
So, if I had an unlimited supply of cash, and Well, what else might happen, though, if maybe it's your third or fourth ticket? What?
If you didn't pound your car.
Yes, you ain't getting to school tomorrow because your license has been revoked. Okay, but let's say that it's your first ticket, or potentially your first ticket. You don't even know what's going to happen yet. You just see there's the lights going in your rearview mirror, right? What's another thought that you could have besides, oh crap? You might have I got plenty of cash. This is not going to be a big deal for me. Okay? What else could you think? It's not very likely, but I don't care about what you're likely going to think. I want to see if there is a different way to think. Jake?
I had times where he's not pulling me over, he's just wanting me to get out of the way.
Right. Oh, it's not me. Cool. I'll zoom over. Okay? What else could you think?
This might be weird, but I know a lot of cops, and so they'll know that I've got a new toy or something, and they'll pull me over just so they can talk to me.
That's just my buddy.
Yeah.
And he's just trying to be friendly. Okay? So that's another thought that you could have. It's not likely, but you could. Is there another thought that you could have? Doesn't matter if it's for real. Is there another thought you could have when you see the lights going? Think.
I think maybe he'll just let you off the warning.
Okay, I'll use my charm and my good looks, and I will dazzle this guy, and he'll probably just let me out. Yeah, okay. Won't be so bad. A warning I can handle. No big deal. Okay? Good. That's, 5 things? Is there anything else you could think?
I deserved it.
This guy is the nicest person around because he's watching out for everyone's safety, and I was doing something wrong, and he's making sure that, he's helping out the whole citizenry. Now, as dumb as that sounds, as dumb as that feels to us to say something like that, what are you not getting going, or what are you not thinking that was in your situation when you said, oh crap? The threat, right? Oh man, bad things are going to happen. I better prepare. I know people who they don't mind when a cop gets behind them. They're used to it or whatever. It's no big deal. No stress response. Okay, there's one example. Let's use another one when we're driving. Does anyone live over in the valley? Is it Ogden Valley or whatever it's called? Does anyone here live there? Does anyone ever do anything over there?
I grew up in the valley.
You did?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, where did you live?
I lived in Eden.
Oh, Eden. Okay, that's a beautiful place. So, what's your name?
Chelsea.
Chelsea. So, I want all of us to pretend for a second that we're Chelsea. We live in the valley, and you wanted to, you're coming, let's say you work here in Ogden somewhere. Did you happen to work where did you work?
I work at Fantastic Sam's, so I used to have to drive all the way up the canyon.
Every day?
Yep.
Fantastic Sam's?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that is.
It's a hairstylist job.
Oh, okay. So you
Cut hair.
made people look better.
Yep.
Did you like the job?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm still there, so.
Oh, you still like it? Okay, good. Let's pretend that we're coming from the valley to work. How long does it take you to get from your house to your work, usually?
About 30 minutes.
30 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let's say that you are, for whatever reason, you realize you only have 25 minutes to get to work. Okay, I'm sure that's happened a time or two. And so you're coming through Ogden Canyon. Okay, now what do you call that? That one 2-lane road that goes, it's really windy. As you're coming through Ogden Canyon, flying through there, what is it on your mind as you're, as you're thinking, that you've got to hurry? What is it? What is on your mind, and why are you thinking, I got to go through here faster than usual?
I can't be late.
And if you're late to work, what might happen?
Might get fired.
And being fired means what for you?
No money.
And no money means
I can't do anything, can't go to school, can't
pretty much you die,
work, yeah.
right?
Nothing.
Well, see, that's how we've equated it in our minds. We don't realize that, but whenever we think, oh, I'm going to get fired, our body says, oh, I better prepare for this death. As far as our body's concerned, it's not real. Nothing's going to happen to you if you get fired. It'll be tricky. But we've all been fired from things, haven't we? Maybe. I was fired.
Yeah.
I once got fired from a place that was I used to repossess cars for my job. And I had to leave that job because it went to Salt Lake. And I got another job at a place called CMS Collections. And we had to call people up who had loans and tell them, we're going to sue you if you don't pay us. And they told me I was too nice. They said, you're fired because you're too nice. They said, you have to be meaner. Those were stressed people. Anyway, you're driving to work, okay? And all of us are Chelsea. You're driving like crazy. And then you're coming down, and I think, isn't there a restaurant about halfway down? Or?
It's like an inn, like a bed and breakfast type thing.
Yeah. And out from this place pulls a really old guy in a really big Cadillac. He can barely see over the steering wheel. You've seen this guy. He's everywhere. He's just driving, and suddenly you're in back of him. Okay? This guy has just ruined your day, right? No, he hasn't ruined your day. He's just pulled out there. But nevertheless, you're driving right behind him, and he's going about half the speed that you need to be going to get to work. Okay? So, and there's no way you can get around him because, the roads are like this, and you can't pass anywhere because cars are coming the other way. No possible way to pass him. You're in this situation. All you can do is drive behind this guy. So what starts to happen in your head? Really, what starts to happen? Chelsea, you're Chelsea. What are you thinking now? You're pissed off, right? Okay, because what? This guy is ruining my day, and he'll probably, I'm sure I'm going to get fired now. I'll be a half hour late. And last time I was a half hour late, she said, if you're a half hour late one more time, you're out of here. So you're thinking about all these bad things that are going to happen, right? And you think about it. But he's doing it to you, right? He's making you feel all these terrible, I'll tell you this story. You see people having almost heart attacks, myocardial infarctions there on the road because they're so ticked off at somebody in front of them. Now, let me ask you this. You're still Chelsea. You're right behind this person. Could you think differently about that situation than, come on, I'm stuck? Right? Could you think differently about it? What else could you say to yourself that wouldn't include activation of the stress response. Really? What else could you say?
I usually just say, "Oh well, nothing I can do about it now."
Yeah.
Oh well.
It's out of my control. And if it's out of my control, why try to control it? Does that make sense? Why try trying to control it? If you can't control it, why try? Okay, there's one thing you could think. What else could you think?
I'm sure the old man's stressing about how everyone else is going fast. These darn kids.
He might be. You know, he's
trying
like,
to take things into his own hands. So we're either stressing or causing him stress.
but most likely, see, I know this guy. He doesn't care. He's just driving. You know? That's all he does, is he just drives. He doesn't even know he's 20 miles an hour under the speed limit. He's just driving. Okay? What else could you think when you're behind the guy?
He has a nice car, I wish I had it.
That is a sweet ride, that big Cadillac. You could take a look at it, notice it, and wow, it's pink. How do you get a pink Cadillac like that? No, his is always white. What else could you think? I mean, seriously, what else could you say to yourself in your mind that's going to be different than, oh my gosh, this crazy guy?
Well, he must have Mary Kay with that big
He sells that stuff? Because you have to win one, don't you? How did that old guy win Mary Kay contests? Okay, there's another thing. What else could you think?
Listen to your music, notice the scenery, like you mentioned, just notice things.
I don't get to go this slow very often. And it's such a beautiful, it is beautiful in that drive. I'm just going to turn on the music and enjoy this because I don't get this too frequently. You have just as much right to think that as you do, oh man, all these bad things are going to happen. But why do we immediately go to, oh man, all these bad things are going to happen? Why do we? Why do we immediately go to the worst possible thing that can happen? Yeah, for some reason. Yeah, for some reason. But those things rarely, I mean, how many times have you been a half hour late? How many times have you missed tests? How many times have you screwed up on, tests? And really, how much of an effect has it had on you? It looks to me like we're doing okay. But our minds keep going back to that. Oh, no, I got to think the worst things. But I guarantee you, if you continue to think the worst things, you'll continue to have the stress response turning on. But what I'm trying to tell you is, through some of these examples, is you don't have to think those ways. You can think differently. The third answer is, yes, I can think about this differently. It's my call. The reason why I'm so sure that it's not the guy who's making me so mad is because if Chelsea's driving behind the guy and I happen to squeeze in between him, and I'm out there with my family on a nice, afternoon drive or morning, I don't know when you go to work, but and I don't have those same, stressful thoughts going off, that tells me it's not him that's causing me to be stressed. It is my thoughts about it. It is Chelsea's thoughts about it that's causing the stress, not the situation. See, I am absolutely convinced, and I have yet to find an exception to this except maybe one. There is nothing in the world that is inherently stressful. There is nothing out there that universally causes everyone who experiences it, the stress response turned on. Now I want you to think that through. Don't just, okay, Mike said that, it must be true. Think that through. Think about all the things that you call stressors in your life. Everything. Is it possible for those things to be experienced without the attendant anxiety, without the stress? Is it possible? May not be likely for you, but is it humanly possible? Yes? And if it's possible for... So somebody tell me your most stressful thing, anything that comes to mind. When I say your most stressful thing, what comes to mind? Just me asking you the question. What's the most stressful thing that comes to your mind? When I say, this is the most stressful thing for me, what?
Just making sure like bills get paid.
Okay, paying bills. Okay. And the idea of not having enough money is a stressor for a lot of us, right? Is it possible for somebody to not have money and to not have any stress?
Yeah.
Now, we may not think that that's a very, doable situation. That's not my question. Is it possible for anyone to have no money and to not have any of this stress response going on? And if it is possible for one person to not have any stress in that situation, that tells me it's not the situation that's causing the stress. It is what?
Your thoughts?
Yeah, how I think about it, how I interpret that situation. To you, not having is stressful because you've interpreted it that way. Somebody else might interpret it a different way. It's not the situation, it's what's going on up here. Does that make sense? We have to get this. I mean, I know I'm being kind of emphatic here and trying to, push it in us. But until we get this idea, we will always be stressed. We will always be at the effect of everything that happens to us. Oh, it's just making me so mad. How many times do you hear that? How many times do you say that? You're just making me so angry. Well, if that were possible, that'd be the most superhuman thing a person could. Nobody can make you angry. Nobody can make you stressed. Nobody can make you anything. What was Eleanor Roosevelt's famous quote? Do you remember that? Nobody can make you feel inferior without your consent. And my thinking, my corollary to that is, no one can make you feel anything without your consent. And the reason why I know that is because you take somebody else in the same situation and have the same event happen and nothing happens to them. Perfect example. And we could give thousands and thousands of examples of this. I don't know how many of you are football fans. Last weekend we were up in Park City and we were watching some of the football games. And I was with a friend who, he was an alum of Minnesota. And Minnesota was playing a game. Did any of you see the Minnesota game? It was a nail-biter, wasn't it? It was a pretty... This guy, he said, I had him, I said, his name's Tim. And he's a professor. He's a smart guy. He's a logical guy. But he was freaking out about this game. And I wasn't even watching it very closely because I couldn't care less about Minnesota. I kept waiting for the Weaver versus Wyoming down at the bottom, and they never showed that. But he was pacing, he was nurturing. He touched my hand, and it was clammy. It was like freezing cold hands. And I guess it came down to the last play, didn't it? The last play of the game reminded me, because there's so much.
Was it the field goal kicks? I don't think I saw the end of the game. I remember watching parts.
There was. Anyway, whatever it was, he was freaking out. Nobody else. There was probably 8 other people in the room at various times in this living room, dining room area. They were all like, oh, whatever. Who's ahead now, you know? But to him, it was huge. Then the BYU game came on. I've graduated from there a couple times. I've got a little connection, grew up in Provo. I have found myself getting anxious about this game. And I noticed that other people in the room watching the same exact game, oh, whatever, no big deal. Same game, everyone was interpreting it different ways, and depending on how they interpreted it, you know, oh man, if Minnesota loses, well, they might as well kiss their season goodbye. I don't know how many. Did any of you see the BYU game?
Yeah.
A few of you did. When the quarterback for the who did they play? Oklahoma. Yeah. When the quarterback for the Oklahoma went down, when the linebacker that was blitzing came in and he slammed him to the ground. How many of you went, yes, secretly? You did, didn't you? A little bit. You kind of went, we got a chance. How many people in Oklahoma went, oh my gosh, no, anything but that? How many people? The whole population of Oklahoma in one breath went, no, please. Same thing. People interpret it in entirely different ways, and depending on how they interpret it, determined whether the stress response turned on or not. Same exact event, two people interpret it different ways. Does that make sense for us?
Here's an example of that. I don't like BYU. I'm a Ute fan. So
And that's
I was stressing out the whole time
of which game?
with BYU and Oklahoma.
Oh, because you didn't want them to win.
Yeah. So when that happened, I was just like,
Good for the Mountain West Conference. No, anyway.
Well, that's the other way of looking at it. I came home and my brother's like, "Did you see the game?" I was like, "Yes, that's so good." And then he's just like, "Well, whatever. BYU beat them, so that looks so much better than when the Utes beat BYU." Is how he looked at it.
So that when Utah beats
when Utah and
BYU,
BYU play,
how much greater
BYU
that will
looks a
be.
lot better because they beat Oklahoma, but the Utes are going to beat them in their long haul.
Do you see what's happening here?
Way to look at it. Stay positive.
And just how you said that is exactly what we're talking about. It is how you look at it determines what happens physiologically. That's the whole essence of it, is what you said. How you look at it determines the physiology that will follow. And if you look at it as, oh man, physiology will go cortisol, adrenaline, tight muscles, tight jaw, you know, and if you continue that for a while, all those bad things we talked about. But if you're thinking, oh man, this is great, no threat, no stress response, and you get to keep in balance. So it makes no difference. What's the... What's the number one social fear in this country?
Public speaking.
Public speaking. How many of you are like, oh, I hate public speaking. I hate the even thought of, I hate raising my hand about thinking about public speaking. How many of you are like that? Are, right? Have you ever seen anyone get hurt public speaking? You seen assassinations? Who said? You have?
I was just thinking of when people like throw things at them.
People do? You saw somebody throw stuff at somebody?
No.
Politician nobody liked. Not very frequently though, right? Okay. Do most people get through them? So why on earth, let's analyze that. We'll do this again later on when we get to fear, but let's analyze why on earth would somebody, what are you saying in your mind when you get up in front of that group of people? You know, you've got all of these things you're going to say on your paper, or maybe you're looking at the prompters or whatever, the teleprompters. But what are you also saying that's making you just go crazy inside? What are you saying to yourself about this event?
I think you're wondering what people are going to think when you say what you do. So you're trying to maybe put yourself in their situation, like, oh, they're judging me or whatever with what I say.
All right. And when we think, oh, they're going to think bad things of me, what have we decided that means? How do we interpret that? When somebody thinks a bad thing about me, what does that mean to us?
Threat.
It's a terrible threat. Oh my gosh, nothing worse than somebody thinking bad about me. As silly as that sounds, we do that all the time. You know, think about how, before when I mentioned, you know, it doesn't make a difference whether it's or not. When you're driving and you think, oh, you know, he's just my buddy and, you know, no big deal. It doesn't make any difference if it's accurate or not. It only matters that that's how you interpret it. So, because when you're in front of this group of people, how do you possibly know what they're thinking? Do you have any idea at all what they're thinking? Can you possibly even begin to know? You can't. But we're still doing it the whole time. Oh, man, she looked at me funny. I guess, I must have said something funny and dumb, and, now they're really going to not like me at all. And then stress response turns on more. Now, how accurate is that? Well, if you knew, here's a good quote, if you knew how infrequently people are really thinking about you, you'd stop worrying that they are. If you knew how infrequently people are really thinking about you, you'd stop worrying if they are. Because the thing is, if you look at people and ask, you know, what are you thinking? They're always so worried about themselves. They're not worried about what's the person up there at the front of the thing. Their minds are on their own problems and their own, oh, what are they thinking about me? And all of this interpreting, making up, really, our body goes, oh, there was something in there that sounded like there's going to be pain. And all of it is just our own hallucinations. It's ridiculous, isn't it? I mean, when you think about it, in our safe place here in this room, it's ridiculous to think that we would ever want to do something to ourselves that would harm ourselves by how we think. And yet we do it all the time. I mean, what you said is exactly right. We are always, it's not easy to be in charge of our thoughts. They say, who they are, whoever is who they, that group of people who they are, they say we think about 50 to 60,000 thoughts a day. That's a lot to be in charge of, right? Man, 50,000 thoughts. And but going back to your point, most of those thoughts are the same thoughts we thought yesterday and a week ago and a year ago. We tend to think the same thoughts over and over and over every single day. And if those thoughts are, oh, this is how I'm interpreting things, that includes any kind of pain, it's no wonder we get headaches a lot. It's no wonder we can't fall asleep. It's no wonder we have muscle pain. It's no wonder we're irritable all the time. It's no wonder. Because we're not taking control of those 50,000 or a few of those thoughts anyway. let's see. I want to throw out just a couple more examples, and then we'll kind of do this a little bit on our own. I'm trying to think of the best one. I have so many. Okay, so here's one. And like you were saying, we could all go into our own experience and think of all kinds. I mean, every single day, events are happening around us all the time. And we start to see, oh, I can think differently in this situation. I was playing in a softball game a few years ago. I was on a team that was a co-ed team. And I'm not really fond of co-ed teams very much, but I agreed to play on it. And on one particular game, we were way behind. Our team was way behind, and it was coming down to the last inning of the game. And suddenly we just scored a lot of runs, and we're back within 2 points of the game. I mean, we were down by about 10, and then down by only 2 points, 2 runs. Okay, and we had bases loaded, 2 outs, and I'm up to bat. It's a co-ed game, for heaven's sakes. You know, how difficult is it to hit a base hit? I'm not being mean. Anyway, so I'm thinking to myself, all I need is a base hit, and the guy on second will score, and we'll tie and go into extra innings or whatever. At least we won't lose. Okay, so I'm up to bat, and I hit a line shot. Third baseman, he picks it up, picks up the grounder, steps on third base. Game over. We lost. And for whatever reason, I don't know why, I just so mad at myself. God, I lost the game for us. And for about 15 minutes, I mean, I was just ticked off at myself for not coming through. Okay? Now, somebody help us out here. Help me out. Because I was really, I was right there, and I didn't want to be around anyone, and I could feel it. And I don't get mad very often, but I was really mad at myself. So what might be something I could have said to myself instead of, gosh, Mike, you lost the game. What could, and everything about that. What else could I have said? Help me out here.
Holy crap, I can't believe we made up 8 runs.
How great was that? Yeah, this team, we weren't even supposed to be close to this. Anyway, we were lucky to even be in the game. Okay, if I think that way, is that going to be a different physiology than if I think, Mike, you're so, gosh. Okay, what else could I have said? I mean, really, what could...
That was a good snag by the third baseman.
Man, he's good. That was a line shot. Nobody should have gotten that, but he did. Nice job. Okay, congratulate him. Stop thinking about my own self, my own problems. Okay, what else could I have said? Why? I think the most incredible thing that we had a student here that said this, and I thought, that's the most brilliant thing that I think I've ever heard. You know how you always say, well, 5 years from now, we'll look at this and laugh. We'll look back on this and laugh. She said, well, if you're going to laugh about it 5 years from now, why not laugh about it now? Isn't that brilliant? I'm a half hour late. If I'm going to laugh about it 5 years from now, why not enjoy it now? You have just as much right to be upset about it as you do to be happy and, enjoy the interestingness of being late. Yeah, it's just a game. I don't know how many of you were involved with with sports growing up, but where I live, people are so intense about football and soccer, and you see fans, you see parents just going ballistic over soccer. I'll tell you one experience, and this probably more than any other event proved to me how quickly our interpretation changes everything. True story. My daughter was playing in a soccer match in Mountain Green. Beautiful place, just a gorgeous area. And it was a Saturday afternoon, and a lot of things were taking place on this particular Saturday besides the soccer game. We were just, squeezing it in a lot of other things. A lot of you have probably been in the same situation. And so we were rushing all day long anyway, and we got to the game, and we realized right away no refs, or judges, or umps, or whatever you call those guys, and the guy in the middle wasn't there. What do you call that guy in the middle who runs up and... He's a ref? He's a ref? Okay. The flag guys, and I don't know what their name is either, they were there, but the ref wasn't there. And most of the parents were in the same kind of situation where they all had stuff going on that Saturday, before and after. And we were like scheduling the soccer match right in between all the other things, and if you missed something, then it would blow the whole rest of the day. Domino effect. No ref. And I was watching this happen, and it was just the most amazing thing as I watched these parents getting angrier and angrier at this ref because he wasn't showing up. 10 minutes later, 10 minutes into where it should have been game time, they start and they check their shoes and all those things that they do before the match. And then at a certain time, game should start, no ref. And 15 minutes later, still no ref. And the parents were just, you could feel it, how ticked off they were. They were ready. I mean, several of them said, this ref will never ref in this town again. We will make sure that the worst penalties possible can be placed on this ref. And it was amazing how angry they were. And it was collective, both, it was like a virus. It just grew. Everyone was like, oh, yeah, you're right. I'm going to get ticked too. Oh, okay. And I was just down on the field with my son watching this happen. And then about 20 minutes late, one of the flag dudes, what's their names? They're refs too? They're all refs. Okay. So the flag ref gets the... I don't know soccer very well. My kids all play it, but I don't... We'll keep it simple. So the flag ref guy gets a phone call, and suddenly everyone in the stand's like, oh, I know that's him. They're all over it. And he says, yeah, okay, I'll be sure to tell them. And the guy walks over, and everyone's like, yeah, we're going to... Whatever you say, he's going to get it. And the guy said, well, that was from the ref, and he said that his son has been in a very terrible accident in North Ogden, and he has to take care of the business of the, he had to take care of the, whatever you call it, the business, the paperwork. He's trying to get here as fast as he can, but his son is really hurting, and he had to make sure he was okay before he gets here. He's working on getting here. He'll get here as fast as he can. Now, what do you think happened in a second to the entire, everyone in the bleachers?
Felt guilty. I felt like jerk.
Okay, they partly did that. It was like, oh man, that's... But it was like, suddenly, oh man, I'll go do this. Tell him to stay there. I'll ref. I don't know the last thing about soccer. I'll run around in the middle and call offsides when the ref goes like this. I'll just, anything we can do to help. It was instantaneous. All they did was change how they interpreted the situation a little bit, and the emotion of anger collectively went to love and compassion and, oh my gosh, can you see that? Nothing changed. Nothing changed at all about the situation. Everything changed about how they interpreted the situation. That's the power we have. I want to read you a quote that came from a book. If any of you ever want to read one of the most amazing books ever written, in my mind, is by Viktor Frankl, V-I-K-T-O-R, Frankl, F-R-A-N-K-L, and we'll refer to this guy's writings several times. We do in the other class as well. He was in a concentration camp. He was a wealthy Viennese psychiatrist, and he found himself in a concentration camp in Nazi Germany. He was, and the book's name is Man's Search for Meaning. Unbelievably powerful book, because it tells about the people's experience in Nazi concentration camp. And he found, as he was working with these people, I mean, he was still being, kind of a scientist or a psychiatrist. He found that some people in this camp seemed to fare better than others. They had them in the worst, they had them doing unbelievable, inhumane things. If you ever feel bad about your own situation, you think you've got it bad, ever feel depressed, like, oh, poor me, read that book. Oh. And we all have those times where, oh man, I got it pretty. You ain't got nothing on those guys the terrible things that they did in Nazi Germany. Unbelievable. Anyway, he talked about the people who fared the best, the people who survived the conditions. He said it was primarily because of how they were thinking, the way they interpreted the situation, and primarily it was those who felt like there was some sense of hope that there would be an outcome. They had something to live for. That's why it's called Man's Search for Meaning, because the people who survived it, they felt like they had some meaning besides just being experiment rats, lab rats to the Nazi Germans. And so he said this, and I pay attention. Part of this will actually show up on a quiz, but it's so good. He said, but I'll hit the main point, but just tune into this. He says, the experiences of camp life, and he was talking about the concentration camp during World War II, shows that man does have a choice of action. There were enough examples, often of a heroic, that apathy could be overcome, irritability suppressed. Man can preserve a vestige of spiritual freedom, of independence of mind, even in such terrible conditions of psychic and physical stress. We who lived in concentration camps can remember the men who walked through the huts comforting others, giving away their last piece of bread. They may have been few in number, but they offer sufficient proof that everything can be taken from a man but one thing. The one thing that can never be taken away is the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. He saw the very worst conditions possible, and that's what he realized was you do have a choice in your attitude. You don't have a choice in what's happening out here, but you do have a choice in your own attitude. It's really weird how as soon as we change our attitude to a more balanced one, things start working out in our favor more as well. Really, that's cool. But if we want to just start with the step of we do have a choice in how we think about things, then the things that used to bother us stop bothering us so much. Any of you bank tellers or have worked in a customer service kind of situation? Anyone in here done that? Have you? Do you get some irate people? Where did you work?
I worked at Fun Days. It was just a little shop in Clearfield that had much party stuff.
Oh, well, why would anyone be upset at Fun Days? Still got people upset at Fun Days? Boy, we all need to take this class. Now, did you find yourself occasionally when they were upset at you taking that on? Like, oh, geez, you're upset at me, and it was like you found yourself getting upset as well. Well, the instant you start sensing this, I can choose how I feel regardless of what's happening, then those days at the Fun Days stop being so. You know, when I used to repossess cars, and I would call people up all the time, and they would just lay into me. You stupid! How could you possibly, you know? And this is where I really learned about this. Was back then when I was a repo guy, where I would learn, you know, pretty soon. It's like, that's not my problem. What you're dealing with is not my problem. And I can choose to be pleasant and happy while you're, you know, having a heart attack on the other end of the line. And bawling me out and chewing me out, and we just took your truck and thank you for sharing with us. You have that choice. You really do. And as soon as you start taking that choice, then you start going, my days are so good now. By just that one single thing. We'll play with a few other things that are additional ways of thinking about this, but this is the key element. When you get it, I have a choice about how I interpret this situation, then suddenly you're free. And I'm not talking about just, oh, I can buy this, right? But you're free to be, you're free from all the people who want to make you feel differently. And you know those people are. Family members who want you to feel guilty about everything, or family members who want you to feel angry, or want you to feel certain. You're free. You don't need that anymore. And that's